So we will be starting from already you being able to log in and fundamentally you being able to have already an access of MATLAB. If you haven't yet watched the video that describes how you actually join MATLAB online, there will be a link in the description to this video and will give you a step-by-step instruction on how you're able to log in, get your username and password, get the code that requires you to verify from your inbox and so forth, and you will be able to log in on MATLAB online. This is the interface of MATLAB online. Now, as you can see, and some of you already might recognize, it looks very familiar with some differences to the desktop version of MATLAB. The first thing and the most important thing about MATLAB is that it's a command line. It can be a command line only instruction. What does that mean? It means where the cursor is fundamentally is the first entry point into MATLAB. Without thinking about files and all the different windows up here, MATLAB, that's also its power. It can be as simple as just a calculator. For example, if I want to say 4 plus 5, it gives me 9. Essentially, that is a calculator, right? So it can be as scientific as the square root of 34.4 plus, I don't know, I guess we can say, and then I can say, over, or, 3 divided by something like that. And you can get an answer. The reason why this is important because it gives you the flexibility as a designer, as an engineer, as a scientist, as just a person of interest. Remember, MATLAB is not just for engineers, it's also for people from finance, allows you to fundamentally make use of a very powerful tool that can do incredible things, and we will go through that, but also can do very simple things very well. So, what else is quite important with MATLAB besides the command window? MATLAB works with files. So for example, you are able, on the left-hand side, if you see my cursor, you're able to create different files and we call them scripts. Or you're able to up here directly say, I want to create a new script or a new folder, whatever the case may be. And there's all sorts of different options. The most important things that you will want to know right now is a script is a simple file that takes the very instructions that you were able to do on the command line, but then stores it directly into a script for reuse. That's essentially what a script is. You could be doing, nobody wants to redo 300 codes or 300 lines of code over and over. You might as well store it into a script, and that script can be run and edited and upgraded and so forth over and over. And that's essentially what a script is. Now, let's just take an example. The one thing that is also quite important with MATLAB, MATLAB also allows you, to the extent most programs like C and Python and so forth, allows you to comment your code. This is done with a percentage sign. For example, this is our first script. And in here, we can definitely now do the very same thing that we did before. But now I can now do what we call an assignment. In MATLAB, you're able to assign values to parameters. And the parameter can have a name. For example, in this case, I want to do, let's just say, I want to work out the area of a rectangle, right? So if I say, I know the length of the rectangle, and I say length equals 4, and I can say the comment is unit is in meters, and then I'll say the side equals 5, and I don't have to say that because we all know. Then I say the area equals length times side. So what have I done? I've gone from assigning a number to a name and assigning another number to another name, and then creating a completely different variable name, but only using the assigned names that already have a number assigned to them. So what do I have with this? If I were to now, of course, now what you can do is now you can save, right? That's essentially what we can do. You say example 1 is area of rectangle. Let me say save. And then up here, what you see here is all sorts of different options. The most important one will be run, which allows you to run your script directly. And what you see here is it ran successfully. If you see red lines and all sorts of things popping up, which a lot of you who work with MATLAB get annoyed with, is something that unfortunately is part of the job. Just out of interest, as an engineer, and I've been working as an engineer for the past 17, 18 years, n- I would say 60 to 70% of my time, if I were to really think about my whole lifespan of a work day every day, 60 to 70% of my time has been fixing bugs and fixing red lines in scripts. Just to give you some perspective, for those who want to be in engineering, I'm not saying you will do the same thing. If you're going to be working with MATLAB and scientific code and so forth and design code, I can expect that or higher will be the amount of time you spend in fixing red lines. For example, what would be a red line here? Will be something like this, where I say I didn't put the times and I left it like that, and I were to run it, you will see it gives me an error, and it says invalid expression. Check the missing, and this is the amazing what MATLAB does, missing multiplication operator or a missing unbalanced delimiter and so forth. I.e. it already tells you what you could potentially be missing, which in this case is a multiplication. Okay, so this is what MATLAB does. Very important. Very, very important. Where does all of this go? It goes into what we call a workspace. So this is the kind of the next step in MATLAB and MATLAB Online. And this is down to this area here. This workspace in this instance has a couple of things. One, it will list all the different variables that you created in the current instance that this session has been open, right? So if you close MATLAB again, this workspace will essentially be deleted and you'll have nothing. So each time you have a session open, it will increment unless you decide to delete. And I'll show you how just now. But essentially, workspace, as we have it now, is the place of work, right? I mean, there's no real other reason why they could call it any other thing. It's the space for which you are able to work and do your session, for which you are able to now account for all the different variables and their values. This is probably the most important thing. Not just the variable name, but you're able to directly inspect what the values are. For example, I mean, we did answer the reason why there's an answer here. This is quite an important segue a bit. Ans, or in case answer, but they say ans here, is whatever has not been assigned at any point in MATLAB gets assigned to the variable ans, short for answer. Why do I say this? Because if I were to say, again, calculator style, right, for MATLAB, I'll say 5 times 5 or 5 times 4 equals 20, and you'll see what the ans becomes. Ans becomes 20. The reason for that is I didn't assign 5 times 4 to any variable name, but it automatically assigned it to ans. This is quite important to know because in the event you wondering where's my number gone and why is ants different and so forth, is because you probably didn't assign it properly, or whatever you were doing directly overwrote the previous value on ants. This is quite important. Now I can also do, for example, I can say and interrogate specifically here in this command line. I can interrogate what ans is. What is ans? Ans is 20. But I can also do ans plus 2. Ans is 22. But what happened to ans? Also became 22 because you interrogated ans plus 2, which gave it a new value, which was assigned to ans, and the 20 got deleted. Hopefully that is super clear when it comes to that specific variable ans. But everything else that you assigned will remain in the workspace for you to reuse. For example, I can go here and say area. Area is 20, right? Of course, that doesn't get assigned because I'm just interrogating what the variable name called area is. Now I can say area times 4. Now, see what happens. Area times 4 is 18. Where does it get assigned? To aunts. Hopefully that is super clear. Why? Because if I were to say, bigger area, right? Look how I wrote that. I wrote it with the underscore, bigger area. Probably you can see that. Bigger area is area times 4. See what happens there? Now this doesn't get us, I mean, maybe I should have done it a different number. Let's do it like that. The bigger area is 5. Okay, there you go. So bigger area is area times 5. This is a new variable called bigger area. That is assigned to 100, right? But aunts remain the same. Oh, I did something. We'll get into that just now. Um, and this is quite powerful. So you can, the whole point that I'm doing here is you can seamlessly go from script to command line to a new script. And I'll show you the next thing you can do, which is you can now click on a specific variable, double click on it, and it will open up another window which allows you to directly edit inside the variable itself. And I can do the following. For example, I can say bigger area is not 100. I don't know who calculated that, but let's just say I just want it for the sake of changing things. I want it to be 104. All of a sudden, area is 104. I didn't do a calculation for it. I just edited directly into its own memory, if I can put it like that, right? It's an element 1 by 1 double. We can talk about it a bit later in other times, what signal types means and so forth. But I edited directly, and now it has a different value. So why is this all important? It's important because when you work with MATLAB and you work with Simulink, these 4 areas, command line, script area, variable area, and workspace, will always do the same thing. Whether you work with Simulink, whether you work with MATLAB, doesn't matter, you work with aerospace toolbox, signal processing toolbox, it will always affect a workspace, which you can affect through a command window or directly affected through its script.